Everyone, and welcome to the first monthly meeting of the Council for the Township of Admaston, Bromley. It is Thursday, September 7th, 2023 at the appointed hour of 7:30 p.m. I would ask everyone here present to join with me in the observation of a moment of silence to open tonight's meeting, please. Thank you. I don't know about anybody else, but my moment of silence is being answered. I would now seek, I believe, Councillor Legree, you may have the motion on this evening's agenda.
Moved by myself, second by Angela Field, be it resolved the Council approve the agenda of September 7th, 2023, regular Council meeting.
Council, you've heard the resolution. All in favour? That is carried. I would invite once again disclosure of pecuniary interest and, if any, the general nature thereof. I see none. I would now seek a resolution on the minutes of our council meeting held August 17th, 2023.
Moved by myself, second by Angela Field, be it resolved the Council adopt the following meeting minutes, August 17th, 2023, regular Council meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Legree. Council, any errors or omissions? I noted one omission, I guess I would suggest. This can be found on page 3 of your PDF report. It is agenda item 6 with respect to the delegations and guests, and it is, in fact, in the second paragraph. You'll note that it says, answered that the requirement is 135 meters, and in rural that is not many notices mailed, etc. What I am suggesting, just to provide a little bit more clarity, this was in a response actually to a query of yours, Councillor Field. What I'm suggesting is something like that the requirement is those residing within 135 meters of the base are to be contacted. She advised that the direct contact addresses are provided by the municipality's planner. Ms. Johnson noted that the information was placed in both the Eganville Leader and the Renfrew Mercury as well. And it is just to elaborate the 135 meters, and I think I might even be wrong. I think perhaps Councillor Field, you may recall, I wasn't certain at the meeting or even watching the YouTube recording if it was property or residence, i.e. were all of the properties, any properties within 135 meters, or was it only residences within 135? Do you recall?
I want to say properties.
Well, feel free. You can say anything you want. I don't know if it's accurate.
I think it was properties that were, and it was not residences.
Okay. So in any event, I just wonder if in the version, the official version that will be signed, if we could include language that's what the 135 meters was in relation to.
We can definitely do that.
Okay, thank you. I think that that's probably a friendly amendment. It is just a little bit of elaboration on what's there. I don't think we need a resolution on that. Council, were there any other errors or omissions? I see none. With the friendly amendment, all in favor? That is carried. We have no delegations tonight. We do have a guest. Mr. Tom Haley is here. He was present as the proponent for both a consent application that was conditionally approved some time ago. One of the conditions on that consent application was the requirement for a zoning bylaw amendment. Mr. Haley was here for the public planning meeting and continues to be here. He is a guest. So with that, I would invite Councillor Gorley, please, for the Planning and Economic Development Committee. I gather that I think all of the business got taken care of. There was uncertainty as to whether the prodigal sons would be returning to the table this evening. Councillor Legree.
Moved by myself, second by Angela Field. Be it resolved, the Council approves bylaw 2023-38, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2004-13 for the purposes of rezoning the severed lands in consent file number B17322 that are zoned extractive industrial to rural.
Thank you, Councillor Legree. Council, any questions or comments? This, as I indicated, was the subject of the public planning meeting of earlier this evening. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. And with that, Mr. Haley, your business is concluded. You are most welcome to continue to stay here. Oddly enough, there is no one ever seems to when I invite them to do so.
Yeah.
You've got time for the football game. There is nothing further from the Planning and Economic Development Committee. There is nothing likewise this evening from Community Services. Next we have Operations, and I believe that's Councillor Field.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Legree. Be it resolved that Council authorize the County of Renfrew to complete the design of the Lynch Road culverts in 2023.
Thank you very much, Councillor Field. Councillor Hamilton, Mr. Wyszynski, anything you wish to add? It was a pretty comprehensive report on the Lynch Road. Anything you wish to add?
Not too much, just that the county has been really good to work with so far, and they seem to be coming up with some really competitive pricing, as you can see in the report as well. Yeah, and looking forward to moving ahead with them.
Okay, thank you. Council, any questions, comments? I just had one on Lynch, so I want to be clear. There was quite a bit of work has been anticipated on Lynch Road, and I believe it began right at the Stone Road. And was working into the intersection. I cannot recall what the roads were. This is straight through, essentially at the fork, Mr. Wyszynski, correct? Down on the flats?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So ultimately where I'm going with this question is that the report is talking exclusively about culverts, and I was uncertain. There was anticipated in the budget for 2023 the replacement of the culverts and the replacement of the surface. Is that correct?
That's correct. Lynch Road was broke down in actually 4 different sections. Lynch Road 1 was from Stone Road to Colton Road, which staff replaced the culverts themselves in-house in that first portion. The second portion was a small piece of surface treatment that was pulverized and just re-graveled. It was, I'm going to guess off the top of my head, about 150 meters. Lynch Road 3 was another portion of surface treatment further down the road before McNulty Road that was also just pulverized, resurfaced. So then there was Lynch Road culverts that was going to be contracted out at that time anyway, which is kind of in between all them, but it was kept as a separate item.
Okay, and thank you for the clarity. Ultimately, what we are talking about is a single phase of the 4 that were anticipated, but it was not, so the 140 was not just going to pay for the replacement of the culverts. It was anticipated that would have been paying, so it is the surface treatment that will be deferred as well into 2024.
No, there was no surface treatment going back over it. It was in a gravel portion of the road. So the 140...
on this section where the culverts are going, it was not anticipated then for, okay, that does make more sense because I don't know whether the plan ultimately was to put surface treatment on that section of road. It's not. It is simply the replacement of culverts, and that road will remain as gravel road?
That's correct.
Okay. So this in its entirety, outside, I believe, of some component that would still have to be expended for design, correct? So ultimately there will be something netted out of the 140 that had been budgeted for this section, but this is anticipated for next year. Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments on this? The second one that I had, and I discussed with Ms. Coughlin before we came to order, and it's just with respect to the second component of the, hang on, I'm trying to find that. The second component of the resolution. Oh, no, it's not this one.
That's McMahon Road.
It's McMahon.
That's the next report.
That's right. Okay. Skip it. I'm done with this one. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. That's why I couldn't find it. And on to the McMahon Road culvert, and once again, I believe Councillor Field.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Gurley. Be it resolved that Council receive the information on McMahon Road culvert, and be it resolved that Council direct staff to allocate the budgeted Lynch Road culvert funding of $140,000 to the McMahon Road culvert repair for 2023, with any remaining funds to be transferred to the roads reserve to help offset future capital road projects. And be it further resolved that Council approve deferring the Lynch Road culvert project to 2024.
Thank you. Councillor Agreed.
I don't know if it matters, but because we record, we have a verbal as well as a written. I seconded that, not Councillor Gurley. So Councillor Legree seconded it. It's all good. I just
Okay.
wanted it verbally said for the recording.
Okay. No, and I appreciate that. We if not always achieved, we certainly strive for accuracy at all times. Thank you. Any questions or comments on the resolution on the McMahon Road? This was the discussion that I'd had with the treasurer earlier, and it was the second component about any remaining funds to be transferred. Because this was going to be funded through our OSIF money, that certainly is discretionary, but it is all capital and it is all external forces, if you will, or external supply. It is also not, it is, I'm not sure if that's accurate. In fact, it is not, though, eligible for any of our rolling stock, because one of the things when I was reading the recommendation, I thought, well, the winter control budget's run a little tight, and our grader did not precisely fit within the budget that we had anticipated, but neither of those things are actually eligible for OSIF funding anyway. But because this is OSIF, ultimately it is going to stay within the OSIF reserve, which will, by default, essentially allocated to future capital works. But I just wanted that. And ultimately, the intent is that we are going to have a reserve policy and probably a surplus deficit policy for the end of the year. I just want to be careful about, at any time in year, identifying line items as where we might be identifying surplus, because we might have a nice tidy little surplus on one. We have a fairly sizable deficit in another. So it's more towards the end of the year that I become a little more comfortable in that. In any event, because these funds were allocated from OSIF, they will simply remain in the OSIF reserve. Yep, Ms. Coughlin.
I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, but I'd like to maybe modify the resolution slightly and just say that council directs staff to allocate the remaining budget of the Lint Road culvert funding to the McMahon Road culvert repair for the 2023, and just leave it at that, because the remaining funds, because it's being funded by OSIF funding, it's going to stay in the OSIF reserve. I can't take it out of OSIF reserve and just put it in a capital reserve. It has to stay in OSIF, so I think that resolution should be amended.
Okay, and so what I would say is, just for procedure, certainly staff, the treasurer, is recommending that it be amended. So it certainly seems reasonable to me. I'm wondering, and this is not friendly if we're removing a component of this, but I'm wondering if I could seek from a councillor a motion to remove that portion of the secondary resolution resolving clause that removes all of the words that come after 2023. Councillor Field, are you, can somebody does anybody have the pads? Yes. Yes.
This thing?
Now we got them. Oh, you want to use the big ones?
Okay. Do you want me to write this out? Is that what she's...
Yeah.
Am I writing the whole thing out?
The thrust is simply to remove
Okay.
that second part of the second resolving clause. Councillor Hamilton.
Unless I misunderstood, there will not be 140,000 left in the fund. That's what she's correcting? That's what we're correct?
Two things. What Ms. Colgan had said is whatever the remaining funds are, because some will have to be allocated towards design, but that is a component. The second component is we can't actually transfer it to a road reserve because it must stay in the
Yeah.
OSIF reserve.
But this
So
reads-
both of those things are going to be captured in the amending
Thank you.
resolution.
For the clarity?
Okay, so the amended second part of that resolution will read, and be it resolved that council directs staff to allocate the remaining budgeted Lynch Road culvert funding to the McMahon Road culvert repair for 2023.
I could have a mover for that, please. Councillor Field, seconded by, we can try and get this side of the table here tonight. Councillor Gorley.
Don't count them. They weren't supposed to be here.
All in favor? That is carried.
And then I'm handing this to you.
Yes, that's right. So this will be amended. Okay, that essentially was the amending motion. So now I'm going to go back to this resolution as amended that has been moved by Councillor Field and Councillor Agree. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And that concludes the Operations Committee report. There is nothing from Waste Management, Finance and Administration Committee, which is mine. Ms. Charkaby, do you wish to speak to the stopping up and closing of an unopened road allowance, please?
Yes, so this is a housekeeping item. You know that we are preparing for the expansion of the fire hall garage. You know that the surveys had been completed, and we now need to close up a portion of that road so that we can add that property to the Douglas Fire Department property so that we have the space for the fire hall garage. So it's just a tidying up of that. That's what that is.
Thank you. And Council will note within the discussion that there are no access implications from the stopping up and closing of this road, nor were there any responses. The public notices that I believe, was it twice in the paper? Just a single time. I did actually see it in the paper, so notice was provided and no response came forward. Any questions or comments? Just for mine, for clarity, so Hill Street in this instance runs from Queen Street to King Street, unopened in its entirety. The stopping up and closure is only going to be in that section, that half section to the southwest, where the township is the property owner on both sides, because when you extend into the northeast half of that runs from there to King Street, the township is only the owner on the southern side of that, not on the northern side, correct?
That is correct. However, the survey was only done to the portion of Hill Street that meets the boundary of the fire department property.
Okay.
So that is the only piece that we actually need. So that also, by only doing that one first portion of Hill, should there ever be a property owner who does purchase on that this side, then they would have access downhill. So I think that's why the survey was done that way. And so we're just closing off to meet the parameters of the property.
Okay, so it is only, the street will only be stopped up and closed the same boundary length as the current fire hall property?
Correct.
Thank you. Okay. Anything further? All in favor? That is carried. Did we not get that? Am I jumping the gun here? I guess I probably did. Yes, Councillor Field.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Legree. Be it resolved that Council pass bylaw 2023-39 to stop up and close a portion of the unopened road allowance Hill Street for the proposed fire hall expansion.
Thank you. That's why I couldn't find it.
And may I add, for those watching, Treasurer, Deputy CAO Clerk Coughlin is practicing to be clerk, and I did tell her that council knows what's going on, so thank you, Councillor Legree, because she should have caught that.
I did not catch that.
Thank you. Council, once again, all in favor? That is carried.
I checked it all. I forgot that we didn't.
That's right. We grade on a curve here. Item 12, Protective Services Committee. Councillor Legree. Actually, I think Councillor Field, you may have this resolution as well.
It's a busy
I
night.
messed it all up.
You didn't mess up. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Legree. Be it resolved that Council adopt bylaw 2023-40 to amend the open air burning bylaw to prohibit burning at the Douglas Beach.
Thank you. And once again, Ms. Charkavy, your name is on the report. I will yield the floor to you.
Okay, I can't even hear myself think with the rain, but every year we experience issues with the beach. So in discussing it with Public Works Superintendent Vysotsky and Fire Chief McHale, and I've discussed it with other surrounding communities, one of the ways to maybe ensure everything is okay is to reduce or stop the fires. And enforcement's one of the hardest things. Our open air burning bylaw has POA fines attached, so we can, the OPP can do it, our bylaw enforcement can do it, and our fire chief can do it. So we will be able to enforce it. That's one of the most important things when you're doing a bylaw such as this, is that you can enforce them. So we do have 3 entities that can help us enforce them. I think that if we say, we have the sign up, it says no fires, but we have no enforcement behind it, if people can't have fires, they may be less likely to want to stay. So we're going to start with that. As you can see from the report, I'm going to work on a no camping or no overnight. That's a much more detailed bylaw, so I'm still working on that. But we're going to start with this one, hope that we can reduce the issues that are happening at the area.
Thank you very much, Ms. Charkavy. And it is not, and I want to be perfectly clear, this is not a policy of the township. It is kind of an internal policy of the mayor. My approach to these things is compliance is encouraged, and when it's not being found, that is when a bylaw is created and we take enforcement action. In this instance, as I understand, there have been ongoing concerns raised by neighbors and, if I'm understanding correctly, by those who will use the facility down there, particularly in the summer, I'm sure, particularly this week, probably in the hot weather. And unfortunately, it is being abused, and it is not being kept in a good state of repair. And it is incumbent upon us, for the peace and enjoyment of both the neighboring community, the neighboring folks, but also those who would be using this facility, that they can expect it to be kept in good order. Unfortunately, that's not been our experience, and it seems like it's degrading. So, Council, you certainly will see from this that this is a first step, but there is going to be some significant consideration of taking further steps to ensure that our community can quite reasonably come to enjoy this particular facility. Any further questions or comments? We'll start with Councillor Gree and then Councillor Field, please.
So I agree with the no open burning policy in order to prevent issues, because that's obviously a major concern, especially if the fire was ever to get out of hand there. And it's not on here directly as written, but there is suggestions of the no overnight camping ban and other things happening. I almost wonder if we couldn't look at a complete opposite policy where we actually establish the capability for people to use that for those purposes. Including possibly they have the ability to rent out or register a lot that they can go and pitch a tent and spend the night there. We could provide some form of closed fire pits that people could use, that they're actually contained in a much smaller area. Therefore, they're not making massive bonfires. They're limited to a closed-in fire pit that's already there, cemented into the ground somehow. So it's just a thought, like, part of the issue, I mean, it's not what she meant, but Jennifer actually said out loud, like, you know, to have people not go there or people go away or something. Well, that's the opposite of what we should be wanting to do. We want people to go there, enjoy it, and be there. We don't want troublemakers, which is what I assume she was implying. So there's got to be some way that we can encourage the use of this in the manner that people want to use it, but still limited. So I just wonder if there's something we can do in that respect. Obviously not today, but to consider. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Field.
Councillor Legree and myself are very much of the same mind. I have looked at the Douglas Beach for years before ever even thinking about running for council, and thought, what a waste. What a beautiful asset that we have that we are allowing to just go to waste. I frequent Beachburg several times a year, and I drive by what they call Little Lakes. And what the local townspeople have done is absolutely fantastic. They have developed a pit and they've turned it into a beautiful, beautiful asset for their community. And I have been to the Douglas Beach probably 3 times in the 20 years that I have lived here, and I see so much potential that is totally wasted. I feel that almost in larger urban areas where stuff is, I'm not going to say neglected because nothing's ever been done with Douglas Beach, but when areas are sort of left as surplus or not focused on, there's no sense of pride, there's no sense of belonging, there's no sense of protection. So that's when you get the riffraff, as it were, that we seem to be getting now. If the residents of Admaston and Bromley, and it doesn't have to be all of them, not everybody likes a beach, everybody has their own thing, but if we all banded together, if the rec committees got together and put it in, then we've actually got 4 full seasons of recreation that we can offer our community, that we can offer people coming from outside communities. Speaking with Councillor Gurley on a couple weeks ago, we were talking about even a fishing derby, putting some docks in. Like, there's a lot of options. So instead of just slapping people's wrists and saying, no, you can't do that and you shouldn't be bad, we should be utilizing this. We should be capitalizing on it. Something, maybe not overnight camping. I don't know what would be involved with that. I think it's a fantastic idea and we should look into it. But instead of just saying, thou shalt not, we should be looking at what could we do to make it better. And so I'm not saying don't necessarily pass the burning bylaw, but maybe we, instead of jumping in with both feet, we should look at revamping the whole thing. Just my thought.
So I'm very intrigued by the discussion. Certainly the what's before us now is in relation to, as I've said, I think that these are over many years now that we have had complaints. I will certainly agree that I don't know that there's been substantial well, certainly there's not been substantial investment. I don't know what the nature of even maintenance at the beach. It's a long time since I've been there. I know it's probably 25 years, I think, since I sat on the Recreation Committee. I think at that time that the Douglas Recreation might have been tending to the beach, because I know that there were outhouses, etc. at the time. What I would suggest in this discussion certainly and perhaps this is a resolution that could be brought forward, directing that staff investigate what some of the options might be, whether that's engaging with neighboring municipalities. You had suggested Councillor Field, Whitewater Region, or more specifically, I guess, perhaps there's a recreation group in Beachburg. Without knowing the specifics, it doesn't matter. If the direction is simply to investigate what options we might have to actually provide a more open and welcoming space, that would be, I think, a good place to start. Councillor Field.
I'd also like to say that, it's a small beach, but I look at what Whitewater has done as far as offering swim lessons, on Muskrat Lake and that sort of thing. We keep sending our community members out for amenities and for recreation and that sort of thing, and I would really like to see us looking inward, focusing on ourselves and what we actually have to offer. So if we could, not just Whitewater, but if we could look at what other places do. Renfrew shut down their beach for various reasons, whatever, but if we're but I don't know why we wouldn't be able to look into having our recreation committee or striking up a beach committee even, because not everybody likes volleyball, not everybody likes basketball, but a lot of people will like to swim, or a lot of people like to paddle, that sort of thing. So we could even look at striking up another beach committee or that sort of thing.
Thank you. Councillor Gorley.
One thing I did learn that was heavily suggested and recommended the last couple of days is investing in tourism and having stuff like this here to keep people in the community. So I see it myself as an untapped asset that if it was regulated, it would be treated with more respect. And the potential is endless, obviously. It would take, I'd be very interested in more discussion on how we could turn it into an asset, user fees for out of town even, just to cover stuff. But myself, I'm on board with the other two councillors.
Okay, thank you. I'm
Mayor
what
Donovan?
I'm hearing, sure, Ms. Charter.
Don't forget, we are having our strat plan exercise coming up, and this is where this should be discussed, as well as for budget. You will have to think about putting money aside for creating that as well. So that's when we could go in depth at that time. Tourism will be a strategy. Recreation will be a strategy. So write all these things down and bring them to that exercise.
Thank you for that, and I think that's appropriate. I think that certainly to as a resolution, simply to investigate what options might be. Ultimately, the current resolution that's before us is restricted exclusively to fires. Any future, there's nothing tangible in front of us right now. The suggestion is that overnight camping has been a challenge, but I think if the direction is simply that staff begin to investigate what options there might be for, let us say, providing a more welcoming recreation facility in the Bonnechere River at Douglas. If that's something, Ms. Charfy, I would yield to you, fairly broad, I guess, as to a resolution that you'd be seeking as to what is it that we are looking for.
I don't believe we need a resolution. I just need the direction to investigate, because I'm still working on what that next step would be. And as I can hear from today, I will get more direction at the strat plan, and I'll continue to investigate with other municipalities. We did, when I was in Renfrew, look at camping at Mattaway. It is a big thing, permits. There's going to be more staff has to be hired, stuff like that. But that can all be discussed if that's the strategy, the way forward we want to go, and then we take that strategy and we make it into a plan. So we can definitely do that.
Okay, Councillor Hamilton.
Yeah, I'm supportive of all the initiatives so far. I would just like to suggest, I'm not sure if it's going to be part of the Strats plan, but there should be community engagement here, some by the community on what they think it might look like or need to look like or could look like somehow. And again, I'm not
Yeah, that will be all part of the strat plan, how council wants to include the community. This is just going to be our first step,
Yeah.
and then council will decide how they want to get community involved.
Yeah, no,
Mr. Hamilton, follow-up?
knowing a little bit, the public municipal park in Cobden, there is a gentleman goes around every morning at a certain hour to collect the fees of the overnight campers. He's a volunteer in the village, and he just does it and submits the receipts to the township office at the end of the day. Those that get out before at the crack of dawn don't pay the fee. Those that are there till after they have breakfast pay a nominal fee. I'm not sure what it is.
I think the fairly broad language, and I want to be sure to be clear, I think that this is a component of the strat plan. It doesn't have to get tied up, that nothing can happen without the strat plan. I think that they can move along parallel. I think, in my estimation, there certainly is going to be a pretty significant or a leading role that this would be recreation moving forward too. But I think all of this is predicated on coming up with the investigation of what other communities are doing, what are some of the potentials that we could do, what are the costs, benefits, because I think this is an inflection point and we want to get it right, and that certainly is what I'm hearing here, and I think that we do that predicated on getting good, sound information. Councillor LeGreen.
So I do have a resolution that I've written up for this for this discussion. However, because it's wholly unrelated to the current resolution, I would rather we vote on the current resolution first before I read this one onto the floor.
Yeah, fair enough. So what we're talking about is in no way amending or revising the resolution that's before us, which is simply on the fires, and we can be revisiting that moving down the road. And the other thing that I would say is will have reduced the urgency here is that we are rapidly winding, notwithstanding the weather we've experienced this week, we are rapidly exiting the summertime period. What I would hope is that we might get something in place that we might be able to move on a vision for the next summer period. Councillor Gorley?
Just wondering for in the interim if we put operating hours on it, temporarily closed up to a certain time, because then you're not going to have a fire anyway, and just that would reduce the traffic and the fire until we sorted it out. Or
That won't be enforceable to do hours. Who are we going to send?
okay, it could be just help discourage maybe.
What I would suggest
We
is
already have no burning, and they're
Operate on
not
hope.
following that.
Yeah.
consistent with what Councillor Legree had suggested. This discussion is supra to the resolution, and it's not even connected to the resolution before us. This is simply identifying that we do not wish to have fires at the Douglas Beach. And as I said, we can revisit that as we're progressing. Councillor Field.
I was just going to ask if we do pass the burn ban, I guess, are we able to go back? Should we opt to revitalize in that and then just rescind the burn ban?
There is nothing that council does that it cannot undo.
Thank you.
So with that, I think that now I don't know, perhaps as new business then, Ms. Charkavy, how would we introduce the motion that we've been discussing, or the direction that we've been discussing?
Maybe we'll let Councillor Gree read the motion so I can understand if it falls within this business of the report.
Okay, because it does mention in the discussion, though not the resolution, staff are working on a bylaw.
Yeah.
So essentially, we might be giving staff direction as to what council feels would be the appropriate
we'll
path
see,
forward.
because it may be a follow-up resolution to
Thank
the
you.
one.
Having said that, coming right back to the resolution that is on the table before council right now, is there anything further with respect to exclusively the banning of fires? All in favor? That is carried. Now, Councillor Legree, I will give you the floor if you wish to introduce your motion, please.
So moved by myself, seconded by Angela Field, be it resolved that council directs staff to investigate options to rejuvenate the Douglas Beach.
Yes, that motion can follow this one, sir.
Okay.
It ties directly into the report.
And that certainly seems broad in scope so as to not limit what the investigation may be. It seems certainly cogent to me. Council, any further questions or comments on the motion introduced here? Councillor Hamilton.
Don't want to complicate the motion, but I would like it registered that I'm in favor of community input to whatever planning goes forward.
I think that we can take that as council can take that under consideration. I think we want to be very careful about starting to have bullet points on these resolutions because then it becomes obviously when you've missed some. So at this point it is very broad in scope and that would be my preference is to leave it so. Anything further? All in favor? That is carried.
Sorry, who seconded that?
Councillor Field.
Okay.
There is nothing. Now it was subsequently sent out, correct? It is council information. Okay. I guess we don't seem to have that anywhere on our thing, council.
No,
information.
it was sent out as a separate item, and I just sent the agenda cover.
Oh,
It is
okay.
on
And all
the
I'm getting
website.
at, maybe what I'll do is I will approach that as old business then, just to see
Yes.
if there was any member of council had any input they wish to bring forward. Having said that, there is nothing from item 13. Item 14 are the bylaws, and Councillor Field, you are in possession apparently.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Legree, be it resolved that the council adopt the following bylaws. 2023-38 zoning bylaw amendment, 2023-39 road closing bylaw, 2023-40 amend open air burning bylaw.
Thank you, Councillor Field. And council, all in favor? Sorry, Councillor Gorley, you wish to speak something?
Or yes, just when we talked earlier, it was open air, and then on the actual bylaw, it includes the cooking appliances.
Yeah, it was just a summary of the bylaw. That's okay.
Yeah, I just with the cooking appliances, I just had concerns with like when the Lions Club does the fishing derby night and they have barbecue for kids, is how that would come into play if we ban the cooking appliances.
We can give them a special exemption. We can exempt them from it. They just have to let me know. When we had discussions with the OFM advisor, it was very clear that we put that into the bylaw as definitions so that we eliminate all kinds of burning. Because if we eliminate one kind, they'll just go to a different kind, to a different kind, to a different kind. So yes, when they have their fishing derby, we can just have a quick exemption for the Douglas Lion Club from the open air burning bylaw.
Okay, that would. Okay.
Okay. Anything further? Seeing nothing, all in favor? That is carried. Old business, the action tracking list. Councillor Legree.
Moved by myself, seconded by Angela Field, be it resolved the council receive the action tracking list as information.
Actually, as I'm looking at this now, I'm thinking perhaps this might have been an opportunity to have introduced the motion, particularly as the highlighted in pink, I guess I would say, at the bottom of the action tracking list. That is the direction that was given today is inconsistent with that. Ultimately, the resolution has been read, approved, but ultimately the action tracking list will be amended the next
Yes,
time we see
I'll
that.
amend it to say that we're
Okay,
working on.
Thank you. Anything further that you wish to speak to on the action tracking list, Ms. Charkavy?
No, that was the only thing that we were bringing that we were going to add to it.
Okay, thank you. Council, any questions on the action tracking list? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. New business. This is where I wanted to introduce the County of Renfrew is investigating adopting a development charges There are two options that have been presented by the consultant Watson and Associates. One is that development charges would apply across the county of Renfrew. The other is that they would be restricted to essentially the Highway 17 corridor, so that would be beginning in Arnprior, McNabb Braeside, Renfrew, Horton, Whitewater, Laurentian Valley, Petawawa, Laurentian Hills, Deep River. Guess perhaps Head, Clara, Mariah, I'm not certain. That broadly, those are the larger considerations. Council may or may not be aware. I think that there's something on the order of 7 or 8 lower tier municipalities that currently have development charges. I know that Arnprior, Renfrew, and Horton do. Ms. Cogman, you can probably confirm. I'm assuming that McNabb Braeside probably does as well. Whitewater does. Bonnechere Valley does not. I'm not sure if GM has DCs. In any event, all I'm suggesting here is that most of our surrounding municipalities do not have development charges. It is a very complex process, and I want to be clear that as Council is thoroughly aware, there are 3 components to the tax bill. There is the lower tier, the upper tier, and education. So right now, development charges do not apply to any of those within Admaston Bromley. Should this go forward, it would be restricted only to the county if, in fact, it was to be broadly across the entire county and not the 17 corridor. If the county moves forward to this would not have any effect on the levy for the township itself. So it is a, and I want to be very careful because this is restricted to the county, and there was not an expectation that you would necessarily have input or something that you wish to bring forward to the county on their consideration of this. It is not under consideration at Admaston Bromley. So having kind of set the parameter, I don't know if anyone had an opportunity first off to read go through the PowerPoint presentation from Watson. I think it is a pretty good primer on DCs, but I would open the floor if anyone had any questions or comments. I see none, so we will move forward then. Thank you. Item 18 is the confirmatory bylaw. Councillor Agree, I believe you have this before you.
Moved by
Sir, you missed old business.
Old business was the action tracking list.
Oh, sorry.
So it turns out
Now you're supposed to be clerk.
it's a good thing we have buddy seats here.
Moved by myself, second by Angela Field, be it resolved that bylaw 2023-41, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Township of Admaston Bromley at the meeting held September 7th, 2023, be now numbered, deemed read 3 times, and passed.
Certainly, in fairness to Ms. Charkvy, I did omit 17. There was nothing on the agenda. I presume that continues to be so, that there is no requirement for a closed session. Thank you. There is not. Council, you've heard the resolution on the confirmatory bylaw. All in favor? That is carried. Question period. I see none. Councillor Agree, motion to adjourn, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Angela Field, be it resolved that the Thursday, September 7th, 2023 Township of Admaston Bromley Council meeting be adjourned at 8:18 p.m.
Thank you, Councillor Agree. And Council, all in favor? That is carried. We are adjourned.